Greetings from Bangkok, Thailand, and welcome to 30 Minutes Promoting Unity in Diversity with Wanayran in Moving Cultures. We are today with our guests, embracing us, embracing you, with solidarity energy, bringing love, compassion, and understanding, and let everyone know that we promote unity in diversity. And we say no to injustice. We say no to discrimination. We say no to any kind of bias or negativity that can get into our life. Our guest, number 115, not 115, 215. Hi, I've been cutting 100 people from these conversations. He is a synonymous of glamour, fashion, and also what we call cultural aesthetics. You know, he has very clearly understood the power of tradition and how tradition can actually send a message through the way we dress, the way we move, the way we celebrate our identity. His name is Mothusi Lesolle from Botswana. So, Mothusi, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
So happy to see you and happy that you accepted the invitation to talk about your life and your experiences.
You have no idea how happy I am. I'm so excited to see you and especially to be really having a conversation about something so purposeful.
Yes. So the first question, Mothusi, is who is Mothusi Lesolle?
Wow, I'm Mothusi Lesolle from Botswana. I call my currently, or my new developments, I call myself a transformational fashion designer because of the certain things that I've come to over the years advocate for. You know, I've always been advocating for responsible fashion, but I think with growth, maturity, and a little bit be more wise, I now understand to call it transformation or define it as transformation. So one of the things that I advocate for is commercializing culture, as you mentioned, that I embrace culture, practices such as ethical fashion, which is about making sure that we do fashion responsibly enough to be able to benefit the communities and the people that work within those projects. Sustainability is also part of what I advocate for. But in Botswana, I am, like I said, I'm a community builder. I'm a son to my mother and a brother to my sisters and a friend to many. And I love life. The young people call it soft life. I love soft life. And I'm a hard worker.
Mothusi, you have a brand that is named iZaura. Talk to us about iZaura. Why is that name part of your life?
Yes. So iZaura, when I was young, I grew up watching a slave series, interestingly, called iZaura, but it wasn't, it was a slave series based on, you know, a slave trapped in the wrong body. So when I then decided to join this industry, because I was a corporate man, I graduated with political science. I then said, but I knew that fashion has always been part of my DNA. And so when I then went through this route, I said, I will define the designer that had been trapped in me for so many years, even though it wasn't spelled the same way, but I did draw an inspiration of the name from there. And also, it was looking at how, Black men had always been in the background and eventually taking lead in the world. And I said, I'm giving a prophecy to my brand that one day it will take lead in the fashion industry. So that's really the basic inspiration of what iZaura comes from. But interestingly, there was a time when then I discovered that iZaura was a name that existed every other where. And I almost changed it because I thought, okay, maybe let me leave it and just maybe bring it home and call myself, and call the brand Mothusi. I then met a guy from Namibia who then said to me, are you from Namibia? And I said, why? He said, your brand. And he said, iZaura, which is pronounced similarly to, almost similarly to my brand. It means to wear clothes. That's when I said, I think, yes. So I said, if it means, if this name then exists within the African community from the South to everywhere else, it then maybe is for keeps. I said, then God may be speaking to me at that point to say, keep this name.
It's interesting that energy, you know, coming from traditions. And I think you're very much connected to your ancestry. And that's the reason why there is this mystic flair, you know, in the way you behave and the way you create and the way you communicate. Let's talk about ancestry. Let's talk about your ancestors.
Yes.
And the role they play in your creative process.
So, you know, it's interesting that the word sustainability has started to become fashionable now. And I remember about 4 years ago, I got an invitation by a company called EcoH to go and showcase a sustainable gown at the Buckingham Palace. And sustainability was still fairly new for me. I didn't even understand much. And Botswana's textile development or textile industry is still really at infancy stage. So there we hardly have anything that is about that is maybe sustainable materials or anything. Sometimes you'd have to outsource from outside the country. And by then I was fairly new. I mean, to be honest with you, I still call myself a student of fashion. So with time and grow, you know, as time went by and realizing how much I have been surrounded by what I thought wasn't around me, which includes you know, the artwork, everything. I literally grew up with my grandmother creating. So in the villages they would create houses out of mud and sand, and they would, you know, to seal or to create the flooring and everything else, they would use cow dung. And my grandmother has this artistic technique, you know, and it's interesting because it means at that young age, the artist in me must have been intrigued, because I would stand there and watch her and she would just create these patterns. And my grandmother had no educational, you know, or mathematical knowledge to be able to know how to do things so equally, because you would look from a distance and all these patterns were so uniform. So when I realized how much I was surrounded by, you know, my ancestry was full of art and everything, this is then what then made me realize that it is important for me to really, if I'm going to want to create something that is authentic to me and authentic to who I am as an African, I must go back to my experiences and look at everything that my ancestry was able to do, but had no business acumen and understanding that the art and the techniques that they had could actually bring them wealth. So it's really the direction that I'm taking today is to tap into where I come from and make sure that I commercialize that. And nobody can fight you or can take away from your own experiences, which is something that I really advocate for when I speak to maybe even young designers throughout Botswana, to say your best win is to look at what is authentic to you and authentic to your experience and bring it out. And that is what the world is waiting to see.
Mothusi, don't you think that the different stages of generations have also been silenced due to colonization? Because I have the feeling that your grandmother and your mother is 2 generations there and you're a 3rd generation. They were already expressing their tradition artistically and visually in the everyday life, but colonization, probably more in your mother's generation, was very strong. And they make everything that is meaningful for our origins invisible. What do you think about that?
I'm not sure if I understood you well, but Are you talking about the impact of colonization on the way that we do the way that our ancestry did things?
Yes, exactly. The colony, we have the influence of West, in African societies, and they implemented different values and different way of doing things, and make invisible what is the origin of culture and tradition in Botswana, for example.
Absolutely. We cannot take away, I think, and it would be wrong because, part of transformational fashion is also acknowledging fashion holistically and not thinking that we can, and embracing where we come from, because whether through colonization, part of the fabric of the national fabric that we have here in Botswana called Leteisi was inspired by, strangely, it's called German print, and it was definitely inspired by the Germans. And Botswana being a British colony, we cannot take away from the fact that there's elements of them that they have imparted on us, and we definitely have inspired by that. Even in the terms of our culture, British are very minimalistic people who are, even in terms of fashion, even in terms of culture, they are not as flamboyant as maybe in other cultures. And I see that, the silence in my grandmother, the very minimalistic attitude to life. And even as they did work, it was very as minimal. But the one thing that I keep saying as well is that, and as we speak about colonization and impact of it in our African communities and obviously on our parents, I always say, it's also upon us to decolonize, because unfortunately for so many developing countries, we are still stuck in believing that the definition of what Africa is still defined by the Western market. The definition of what Black beauty is also defined by the Western market. And it's interesting that I've been in places where I didn't feel African enough, because I was in an environment where then Western market wanted to define Africa as silent, without them saying anything. But I knew why certain people maybe were chosen before me, because I didn't have a story of bloodshed, because Botswana has never experienced that. I didn't have a story of poverty, because Botswana has not necessarily gone to extreme poverty. So including fashion, I keep saying, even when I speak, I say we need to decolonize what was put in front of us, and being able to understand that we actually have the power to define the trends. We don't have to rely on the Western market to tell us what is in trend, what is trending at the moment, what is the color that is trending. We can choose to say the prints that were defined by Mothusi's grandmother as she was creating that beautiful pattern on the walls, and we can commercialize that and put it out. That can be what is trending for us. And equally, we are strong enough to be able to say that can be us setting the trend even for the Western world. So decolonizing of fashion for me it's something that I speak about a lot, to say, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being inspired by the world, but I wish to also know that I wish for the rest of my fellow African brothers and sisters to understand that we have the power to be able to define what is trending just by looking at what we've experienced or what our parents had put in front of us.
You have a very characteristic style that put together textiles that are not necessarily African, but that represent Africa, because they're colorful, the textures are soft, they move, and they're bright. And I think to continue with this conversation, I'm going to bring some images to the screen. Okay, so here you are. And this is iZaura.
Yes.
Okay. And this is what I talk about. It's like you have this tendency to have this very classic, where you talk with your images and with your designs in very soft and very glamorous way, but then you can drastically become something completely different. Yeah. Talk to us about
Yes,
this image.
let me tell you, which this image right now.
Yes.
So this is, yes. So I think, interestingly, I was telling somebody the other day, I said, from, the time that we met in Kenya, I was still learning. I'm an in-house trained designer. I didn't go to school to study fashion. Mm-hmm. So I've had to learn and learn so many processes, change so many times. And I was saying to somebody, never ever be afraid to redefine who you are until you are comfortable with who you have arrived to be. I look back, sometimes I look at images and I'm like, interesting. I wonder what was going on in my mind at the time. Let me tell you also something. When you're trying to find your foot in, even in fashion, sometimes you go extreme. You go extreme. You are trying to grab, like I've had moments where the market in Botswana had defined my work because I was trying to make sure that people buy the market, buy my clothes, buy my work. And over the years, then I realized I was not even happy with who I was or the work that I had put out, because it was defined by, I'd allowed this, a small market like Botswana to dictate to me how things should be done. And I go back, it's still set on the trends somehow still, are inspired by colonial impact on the people here. Now I'm at a stage, the next picture, for example, I think it was still me coming comfortable with trying to find the Africa in me without necessarily using what we define maybe African prints. For example, I'll tell you, Botswana, where I come from, like I said, we have to always use our experiences or what is indigenous to us to define who we are. Botswana is also known as a tourism, they call it the last Eden in the world. We are known of great tourism. And for me, the Africa in me is always inspired or defined by a resort collection. I love to see, when I think of Africa, I think of a woman on holiday. I look at the animals. So that's just where it comes from. Here, it was just me being at a wedding and looking clean.
And I think this is the point, that you have a very eclectic touch. It's for example, the previous photo, you were in a very Western style, but always with this African elegance, and here you are with this Asian, Oriental flair.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but it's African, yeah, at the same time.
Also, absolutely. So for me, and it's interesting because I have a talk soon that I'm going to give at a fashion event called Fashion Without Borders. And I've always said, everybody is free to get inspiration from anywhere else in the world and make sure you bring it home.
Yes,
like you look, this is like you're saying, Asian kimono inspired outfit. Here for me, I was doing a photo shoot preparing for the Buckingham Palace, and a zebra is one of the biggest animals in the country. We identify with the zebras so much. Our football is called the zebras, and that's so to a point where we always say you earn your zebra stripes. When you as you develop as a person in Botswana and you earn for the hard work that you've done, we say this person has earned that zebra stripes. So very that's nice. Just where I love black and white. And then I can go extremely, I'm a bling bling. So I love my bling. And this is exactly what I was talking about. So I'll tell you something. One of the reasons that maybe we have failed to evolve, or we have failed to make the young generation get interest in African fashion, sometimes it's because we fail to evolve the materials that we have. They're similar, they're still, they're still, we don't have an Ankara in chiffon, for example. Maybe that's what a young person would like to see it as. So in the space that I'm in today, I've picked up everything that I've loved. The fact that I love bling bling, I love the African in me, and I love, you know, flow and ease. And I said, I'm going to find a way of bringing all these things together. There's nothing wrong with having an Ankara that is sequent, that is part of us as growth or developing to show where we are going to. Still, in the my Asian inspired outfits, and the community here as well equally dresses. As you see my friend on the yellow, the black and yellow, the other side, it was also inspired by just the tourism and the black and zebras prints in Botswana as well.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I surprise myself too.
Yeah, this is what I said, that it becomes you're very versatile. You know, anything can happen.
Yes. Interestingly, I realize as I grow and I become comfortable on who I am and know who I am, I realize that I'm starting to feel like there's less of me is more. You know, like I'm starting to slowly take away. And listen, when you are earning, when you are fighting to get somebody to listen and watch, you will do it. You will go out of your way. And I remember when I was jokingly singing at the Buckingham Palace, next to me was a Stella McCartney dress. It was so simple, because she has found she doesn't need to prove a point anymore. You know, she has reached the stage of knowing that she defines what she wants or who she is without having to try too hard. And next to it was my dress, which was so flamboyant. And I look back and I say, I'm glad that I went through that phase. I've learned, I realized that I can get, you know, as I've developed also my skills, I can also still define greatness without doing too much. Here is just, I was able to
accessorize. I think the following topic will be accessories, and how important is also how you feel with anything else you wear with you, a purse, glasses, a hat. This one, for example.
So this is at we have it's a big horse racing event that we have in Botswana. It's called the Moscon Derby. And, you know, it's within one of the greatest tourism parts of Botswana, a place called Maung. But it's more a safari. The place is known as more for safari, and, you know, the fashion is, you know, is driven towards safari glam and all sorts of things. So this is why I went this route and decided I will go khaki safari, but still bring an element that's, you know,
fashionable,
yes,
and traditional. Okay, this one, for example, caught my attention, the color and the texture.
Yeah, I mean, on this one, and interest, so it was my best friend's wedding, and we were given fabric to make, and I said, listen, I just wanna, you know, I wanna have a suit, but can I make it more me? I don't want to necessarily wear a shirt with a tie and everything else. So I put together a
turtleneck
like that, and put in a pocket square, and we're good to go. So sometimes, and I realize it's like we say, simple things, little things that you add to pick up the fashion. Your outfit right now, you look very beautiful, but you've got also this amazing piece that takes it to the next level. You know, so it's one of those things that, you know, just accessories just make a huge difference. This was at the brunch that I made that time. And it was still me trying to find my niche in ready to wear, which I think is at 80% of my work or 90% of my work.
Right. Okay.
And my t-shirt, I love my t-shirt. Botswana is very hot, extremely hot. And I love, even as I go into streetwear or, you know, my ready to wear, I always try and find the street in it. I love, it's an easy functional dress. And it's one of the things, it was one of my best sellers during COVID. lockdowns because people were home, everybody was working from home. So it was always easy to find something that you can just wear. And then in case you have to step out quickly to the mall, you still look good. So it's one of my famous t-shirt dresses, yes.
Yay, so you're also very chic, you know, when you exercise. Talk to me about this photo and the one who's coming as well.
So we've had this, I've just, I'm now part of the fitness and training routine. I used to be so lazy, but one thing I told myself, I said, when I get to a certain age that I will not mention, I would like to enter it looking young and fresh. And I said, there's only one way to do it, is to make sure you eat right and you also exercise. So this picture was taken recently, about maybe 3 weeks ago. We at it was taken on the bridge. It's a new bridge in Botswana that connects 4 countries: Botswana, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Namibia. And that was the inaugural marathon that has just been introduced. And behind me is beautiful Chobe River, which is big. And this is me at training, trying to look the part.
Yeah,
yes.
and you always deliver a message. You know, it's not only about the fashion; it's about the attitude, like you were mentioning. Now you have understood things that you were not aware in the past, and I think your images talk about that.
Yes, there we go. That's me still defining Africa, and that for me is a resort collection. This was at AFI Fashion Week in South Africa, Johannesburg. And it is a leopard-inspired print shirt with a see-through skirt that has got ostrich feathers at the bottom. And that for me, because of where I come from, where we respect tourism and diamonds, I was defining Africa in this regard.
Very beautiful.
Thank you. And this dress it's called Motlalipula, which means the rain bringer. It was displayed at Macy's in Washington, D.C. As a celebration for a month. It was displayed on the window display in the US at Macy's as part of celebration of world fashion. So
fantastic.
The fabric is like I said, what we identify as a traditional fashion.
And what is it? These are ribbons on the edge of the blouse and the skirt.
So edging is done with what we call a bias binding, and it was I created a wavy feel to the look because to define, like I said, the rain bringer. We value water in Botswana so much, and that was me defining and looking at the rivers and the flows that we have, the few rivers and flows that we have in Botswana. That is why even at the bottom of the dress, we have that gathered long flow. It was to show and honor the little water that we have because Botswana is a semi-desert. Yes, and that was me defining celebrating my birthday a few years ago. It is winter. I'm born June 18th. So warm and yes.
Classy.
Yes. And this is AFI, like I said, where I was showcasing in South Africa, one of the greatest launching platforms for any designer who wants to really make that mark in Africa. I think it's always great to showcase at AFI. And so this is taken part of the month.
This is coming.
The month, yes, this is coming. I'm going to be, I was invited actually last year to this event, and I think it just didn't feel right at the moment. At the time, I don't know, maybe it was COVID, I was just lazy, I don't know. But I think this time I'm more excited because I'm going to be speaking about something that really is close to my heart, like I said, about transformational fashion, which is what I think will be the driving force of the change that we need in Africa, to be able to know that we can commercialize what is indigenous to us. We can make sure that we give back to the communities that we work within. They must be benefiting, because you find a lot of people, I don't know if you remember, there was a story of everybody's sensitive or is now conscious about where their clothes are made. And the story that happened in Asia where women collapsed in a building because they were not, so those are the things that I now am very particular about to say. Then we can use our communities and make sure that the communities that we live and work within equally benefit from the fashion that we make. So that is what ethical fashion is about. And those are the things that I'm going to be talking about. And fighting for minimum wage remuneration for the people as well, such that we do not exploit people. The people that work within those projects or our fashion industries must equally benefit in the right way.
Mm-hmm. This is the day we met in 2014. And let me tell you, Mothusi, I knew from the moment I saw you that you will go very far, because even if you were not so aware of it, there's an aura, that is transmitted. And you really captured my attention, And I love the collection you brought to the FAFA festival. And I'm so happy now to see how far you've gone, especially connecting with your inner self and being true to yourself at the moment you are designing. So we're coming back to the main screen, because we're getting close to the end of our 30 minutes, Mothusi. So short, it means that we need a lot of time. Will you share with us your experience in your interview in CNN African Voices? How was that?
It was, interestingly, I ran away from that interview so much because I felt I wasn't ready. I was operating from a garage space. And I said, there's no way that these guys could come and interview me here. I remember saying to them, maybe let me go and book a hotel suite so that we can put it nicely there. And they surprisingly, they refused, and they arrived before the time that we had agreed. So, I think when I'm in the moment of things, I become so numb. Like I just sometimes always ask myself how these things happen to me, because I just do things. I really don't know. It just like, now I look back and say, wow, that happened, and it was amazing. I mean, at the moment it was amazing. And at the time it was about, yes, everybody can see me on CNN. Haters will see that I'm doing well and also. But when I look back, it's not even about that. I realized how much, like you're saying, there's an energy maybe that I transmit without realizing, and they must have also seen something that gives them reason to want to come back. And, should anybody get a similar opportunity, I always say, you will never be as ready as you want to be. If an opportunity comes, grab it. It doesn't matter how less ready you are, because it will open up, or it will raise you to it puts you on a pedestal to be able to now, you no longer dream here, your dreams are a little bit higher. Like they say, our dreams are not just dreams. It's a glimpse of what your life is possibly could be. So if you can get that moment, do it. And now you start to dream. You're not aiming for CNN. Now you are aiming for something bigger. You are aiming for something bigger. So it was so great. I'm truly grateful that I got that opportunity to be able to share my story, especially of Botswana, to the rest of the world, because we're still really developing in terms of the fashion industry.
Mothusi, that message is perfect, to close our conversation, because you are letting people understand that self-realization, aspirations, inspiration, and authenticity are key elements to feel at home with your soul, with your place. And your place can be anywhere in the world, because it's not physical. So thank you for that. Thank you for sending this message to embrace unity and diversity, and to celebrate the universal family.
Thank you so much. I cannot wait for us to see each other again. I believe that the world is opening up, and nothing stops me from being in Bangkok and showcasing.
Yes.
And yes, and I'm happy, and I would like to also make sure that I make you part of my developments and projects that I'll be doing, especially that we have a similar interest in making sure that we create diversity through fashion and with moving cultures and everything that you do. You are an inspiration. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mothusi. All the best in your upcoming projects and events, and keep shining. Blessings and musical kisses for you.
Thank you. Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.